Hello everyone, my name is Lunian and welcome back. We actually have another video released so soon after the previous one. I wanted this to be a bit of a Halloween special, you know? And I'm really happy to be able to have gotten this out in time. So for this, I really wanted the print to have very similar visual elements to the digital wallpaper that I made earlier this month, where it's just like cute ghosty goos design Chuya, just like having fun and interacting with each other amongst this very heavily textured like night. It borderlines like whimsical and very spooky vibes, Halloween children's book style. Lots of pencil work involved in it and very almost coffee stained, not exactly, but very vintage storybook feeling. So I wanted to draw a younger Dazai in Chuya moment where Dazai is kind of leading Chuya through this mysterious abyss, depth of darkness. I'm not so sure how to explain it, but just them two walking through the mysterious unknown in ghosty blankets, you know, the traditional ghost blanket costume that I always love to see. I've been seeing so many of them because of the seasons. It's fantastic. Just them two going through this walkway that is lit by mysterious stars or maybe mysterious beings, who knows, just giving it a very magical, somewhat nostalgic feel. Personally, I'm not so sure if Chuya trusts where Dazai is leading him. It could be somewhere wonderful, it could be somewhere life-threatening. We're not so sure, but still, with how Dazai runs, who knows. And in order to try and grasp that kind of the mood that I envisioned it from that earlier description, I experimented so much with all the different compositions that I wanted. I knew I wanted it to be more so from, in a sense, Chuya's perspective, where he's looking at Dazai, so you see more of Dazai's face than Chuya's. But my golly, somehow it took me so many different tries just to lock down on the composition. I really wanted to have like the path to the unknown be visible, and just trying to implement that between the very specific perspective that I had in mind just took much longer than I anticipated. I want to say I did like 3 or 4 different iterations. You saw me even like flip the page to make it horizontal instead of vertical, thinking that, oh, maybe I just needed to give the pathway more space to make it look right. But then it still didn't feel exactly what I wanted it to be. So I switched back right away. Like my main 3 details that I really wanted to keep the same, like non-negotiable, were the perspective between Dazai and Chuya and that pathway. And it was at this moment that I also realized that the grid guidelines that I've been using all this time, ever since I started posting these videos online, they were not in the right format. I needed them to be in perspective, a perspective grid, right? Because having those grids just in like a flat 2D space, it just like cross wires with my brain, and it took me a bit longer than it should have been for me to realize that and to go back and fix it. And once I got the grid laid out properly, everything fixed itself. So that attributed to why it took me so much longer in the sketching stage. But as you can see now, I kind of just like did rough outlines to figure out the placement for Chuya and Dazai's body, and just to make sure that they look much more grounded, especially since there's not really any other objects in the space that is as grounded as them besides the road, but even then it's just like a flat surface and I kind of have to tinker around with that. But once we got all of the placement down, the rest was decently smooth sailing. It was the usual steps from here. And this process was made especially easier since the look that I was going for allowed me to just be a bit more looser with my line work. It's very similar to when I worked on the Dragon Prince Chuya print back in July. Just wanted to switch things up for a bit from my usual painting style, especially since that's what I've been doing every single day for this past month for the Drawtober challenge. It's really refreshing and provides a nice little change of pace in between all of the Drawtobers so that I will feel just as creatively energized continuing the remaining days. So yes, we are going in with the intention to have things a bit sketchier. I am using the same brush that I did when I was sketching out the entire drawing. I believe it's the Procreate pencil brush. I find that it has the perfect amount of toothiness when I like to line art something rougher. And I'm able to make the lines much more bolder, much faster, and more easily noticeable in certain parts that I want. And while it feels like it might move a bit slower than what you're comfortable with, like the stabilization's a bit slower, or stronger, I guess, so that the brush itself moves slower, I find that really helpful since I'm able to control my lines a bit more carefully. And a really nice plus to using texture brushes is that they're a bit easier to hide wobbly lines within, just because the texture brushes have so much noise in them, more activity, rather compared to just like a standard hard brush, that since those ones are so still and perfect, it makes it so much easier to notice the wobbliness. Whereas with texture brushes, they kind of operate the other way around. So at this point, I am focusing on lining the lantern. So as you can see, it is definitely not in the proper proportions and perspective. So I had to like go in and kind of fix that a bit with a new sketch over it. The previous one was just a placeholder, so it was a lost cause. One thing I forgot to mention actually is that I got a lot of inspiration from Will-O-Wisp and wanted to give a bit of an Easter egg representing that in this print in some way. So I had it almost like, in a sense, you can kind of consider Design Chuya as, you know, two adventures into the unknown, but at the same time, you can consider Dazai being a Will-O-Wisp himself in a way that's luring the traveler that is Chuya in this case. I feel that it's very fitting that Dazai could be a Will-O-Wisp, you know? What do you guys think? And as I finish line arting everyone, I start on the background. At this point, I'm very much just throwing whatever ideas that I have. You can kind of see earlier that I had the placement for the pathway kind of locked down, and with a rough idea of how I wanted it to look like and interact with everyone. Getting it to actually work in this final version was very much an experiment. I just threw all ideas that I had right at it and to see what would kind of stick, or get the closest effect that I wanted. Genuinely, I think it took me just as long as it took me to sketch out the roughs from earlier. We do have the return of the Bonobo chalk brush and the Tinder brush, my two all-time favorites and go-tos when I want to do lots of painting, backdrop, and borderline rendering. And I start to shade Design Chuya too. I was almost tempted to keep Dazai's hair as is and not do any pencil marks of any sort, but when I went in to do like the eye sockets for the ghost coats, that's a cute term, I realized that, okay, we'll keep all like the bold marks and lines as pencil. We'll keep them as pencil. And then any like kind of gradation, we'll use all sorts of other brushes, like the Tamar brush, the Bonobo chalk brush, and the airbrush. Hatching and cross-hatching is always a therapeutic part of the drawing. I just want ham. Try not to do it too much on the ghost coats, since I feel like that might have been too distracting or make it like too intimidating, too spooky. Definitely going in to finesse all of the little details, add all of the hatch marks, and to lock down on the main source of light, which is coming from that little lantern. So I'm gonna jump in the middle of all of this to say that this will be available as this month's coffee print. I actually can't believe that I finished this early enough so that I can finally say something like this to everyone. Ko-fi is a platform that people can support their favorite creators. Each one will structure theirs differently, but I structured mine very similarly to Patreon, where I give access to a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, early previews, such as like seeing these videos or what kind of merch that I have planned down the line, and what I think most people enjoy and sign up for, the monthly mail. After signing up to my Moon Bouquet tier, you'll receive a little mail package the following month. Within each package, you'll usually get a print for sure, and a bunch of stickers, themed stickers, and they are all never before seen until now. Sometimes there are some extra gifts included too. So if you're interested and would like to support Little Moonfish Ghost, feel free to check out the link below. Also, I really want to thank all of my coffee supporters. I've had quite a few new people joining, so first things first, welcome and thank you so much for supporting. It really means the world. So before I get too carried away and just go completely off topic, let's return to what's happening on screen. So as you can see, I've already placed down the placement for all of the stars and added a bit more color to the background. We're going for spooky colors here, so lots of oranges, yellows, and purples. The combination that I almost seldom never use with each other, I think. I've added a bit more like of a gradation and shading to both Design Chuya. I have their hair actually finally colored with more consideration for the lighting. And at this point, I'm trying to just pull everything together by literally manually coloring in the entire background with the stars and its lighting. I wanted to give off, pencil crayon feel with that kind of like sketchy darkness, It definitely took me a while to figure out exactly how much I wanted to shade everything, since I didn't want it to be completely dark or black. I wanted to show bits of the color, the purples and oranges underneath the texture, so to say. It's a big layering process at this point, and you're jumping back and forth between a lot of the things, from zooming in for the detail and then zooming far away as you can, just to see that is everything working together cohesively or not. As you can see, as I'm like sketching in the background, it makes Design Chuya feel a lot more grounded in the space, especially now that I'm blending in the lighting for the little lantern. It's safe to say that this is one of my favorite parts to have worked on for this drawing. It's very therapeutic just to kind of like repetitively draw like this, and just slowly seeing it all come together near the finale is very satisfying. I am readjusting bits of the pathway just to make it look more windier and feel like it stretches out further into the distance. I'm also adding some smaller stars that aren't as glowy, but they kind of show the colors more underneath them. Adding in some final shadows for Design Chuya, and I want to say this is near the end where I am starting to do lots of like color correcting, and once that part happens, you're gonna see it zoom by so quickly. And let's see, yep, we're approaching it. So I just tested all sorts of colors to just give it the more vintagey, semi-magical feel, without making it look too overexposed or like glaring, if that makes sense. And sometimes after doing the color correcting, I notice that some details kind of disappear during the process, so I just go back in and touch more things up again. Like you saw me brighten the lamplight a bit more, and I wanted to try a bit more color correcting then to see how that looks on top of each other, but at this point sometimes it might look too much. But then I figured that, it seemed too dark, so I added, this is tedious, but I added a bunch of cross-hatching to Chuya and Desai themselves just to make them pop out a bit more. It may have been tedious, but the end result was very much worth it. So after adding in that glowy effect to the both of them, I go back in, do some final color correcting, or I test around some more to see if it will work or if it's better off leaving it as is, and then I start adding the final touches to everything, which means add the noise and the chromatic aberration and any parts that I want to blur out in the foreground or background. I am hoping to have this ready and upload it right before Halloween. I am very excited for that day. It's where I can enjoy all the Halloween candy without any regrets. Kind of. What's everyone else doing to celebrate? Are you planning to go out? Are you planning to just like relax at home? Both are just as fantastic. I hope that however which way you want to celebrate it, that you take care of yourselves, enjoy yourselves, and stay safe, I will try and get the next part for the Drawtober videos out as soon as I can. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this far. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully, and until then, take care and happy Halloween!